Hello again, everyone. So today I'm going to do a short video just talking a little bit about the family in Europe and some of the basic things that were going on, some changes for women, just, a little short one today. Why not? All right, so the family, particularly in the nobility, and even to a certain degree, what will eventually kind of trickle down to like the upper middle class or the merchants, will be this idea of the houses. Don't think like the houses, think the houses, Romeo and Juliet. The Capulets and the Montagues, if you will. Um, Again, and it's really important to understand that like it is still patriarchal, okay, in that the father still dominates, the father still decides who the children are marrying, male, female, all that type of stuff. That is very, very important. So patriarchal is crucial to understand. So sadly, that has not happened or has not changed. Now, for children, things are kind of interesting. Very much a seen and not heard thing. We are going to start to see some changes that will develop. So with the upper classes, it's very interesting. It's that women would actually, for instance, hire wet nurses. In other words, women who are hired to nurse their children, not women, not them, because that was seen unseemly. Some issues that people have that about today. We can chat about that in class. But the ideas that, you know, a noble upper class mother bore children, but then let other people kind of shape it, and then they would help make major decisions, right? Whereas lower class women, they took care of their own children. They actually started to space them out a little bit more, which was important. So the burden wouldn't be as big on them as possible, and their kids would have a little bit more opportunity. What was also interesting here, and I'm going to get to it when I talk about some toys in a minute, that's right. Childhood was actually seen as a distinct phase of physical development. Okay, and you see here these girls. Okay, they're all wearing. They're not wearing like fancy dresses like I kind of showed you in previous videos here. They're just kind of wear basic dresses. The idea here is that children should be children for a while. They're not like little adults, and that's going to be really, really important. And also the idea of this concept of primogeniture, that the eldest son gets everything and is more favored and whatnot. The idea starts to become here that all the family children should be taken care of and they should all actually be given opportunities to do things. That is going to be like super important. And part of this is just, well, toys. I mean, toys are super fun and we want to have those and we want to allow kids be kids, and so we have a 10-pin bowling set here. Look, we got a little horse there, some creepy dolls. I don't like creepy dolls. And then you have some tops, which are always fun. Okay, on the right, the little pretty pocketbook right here was a little kid's book. Okay, and it was designed specifically for children. And of course, here we have a jigsaw puzzle. Jigsaw puzzle came out in the 1760s. The Little Pretty Pocketbook's actually from 1744. So, like, we're getting some positive things for kids here. They're going to be, kids. Now, there are some problems here, unfortunately, is that kids can be an economic strain. They're more susceptible to disease. Infanticide is not uncommon if you can't provide for children. Although we start to get some changes here with the development of orphanages. This is actually a depiction of an orphanage. You see all these little kids, okay, now that is depicted a little bit, more fun than it probably was. A lot of orphanages were probably a little bit more, I would say, closer to poverty. Although it does become a popular thing for the wealthy to do is to open up or to help finance more orphanages. The largest orphanage actually in Europe was in St. Petersburg, which took in somewhat somewhere around 5,000 kids a year, and its max cared about 25,000. And abandoned children were a problem. Okay, there, other than some of these orphanages, there really wasn't anything set up by the states. That's not going to come till much later. I mean, we don't even have standard education. The idea of public education really doesn't even exist at this point. So how are they going to take care of abandoned children? 50 to 90% of foundling centers where you found like abandoned children were actually the mortality rate of infants. And what this is going to slowly but surely create is a very large issue with poverty. And I'm going to get in that deeply a little bit later, but it's a big deal. Now, for women, we are seeing some changes here, particularly for marriage. Marriage is starting to happen a little bit later. Believe it or not, it was not uncommon for men to be married at 27 and women at 25. This isn't the whole like 40-year-old man, 16-year-old girl thing. I mean, it still happened, but I mean, the whole idea is that men were expected to have a certain standing, even if it was peasant men. Have a certain standing, have a certain like establishment for themselves that they can actually provide for their wife and family. Okay, and that's really important. Although the expectation is that you're still going to get married. And in the end, this was actually stabilized the birth rate a little bit, which will slow the population down as we get into the 1800s. However, we do have more issues with illegitimate children, okay? And this is going to be important. If you were born out of wedlock, modern day, those are things that you can overcome and that can be quote unquote normal. Again, that's a really subjective word, but I'm saying that's not an uncommon thing. But back then, if your parents weren't married, I mean, that was a stigma that you had to get over. But in order to prevent some of these types of things, you do have birth control methods. Basically, the whole idea was that you have a child within a year and maybe one child every 2 to 3 years. But again, because of the expense of that and the danger for women, and they would use birth control methods like withdrawal and stuff like that, which wouldn't really always work, but they tried. But they're trying to be smart with the children that they have so they can properly prepare for them, okay, and take care of them. So these are some interesting things, and a lot of that falling to women. But the final sort of change that we're starting to get a little bit here is the change for women in the workplace. This is really crucial, okay, because we're starting to get to the point with the lower classes that women and children need to work so the family can survive. And in urban areas, they work in handicrafts or as servants, but these are free women. They might live in the houses of the nobles, but they're still, I mean, they're free. In rural areas, many women will work the fields. They'll have their own vegetable gardens. A lot of times they'll serve vegetables or eggs in like a farmer's market type thing. And if you look here, so there's the farmer's market. Here women were laundresses. So, you don't have laundromats. You paid women to actually, to wash your laundry, and there was a pretty high demand for it. And then over here, women were seamstresses, that they would repair things. Sometimes they would make things. And if you look at this picture here, you see kind of everything's, this woman's actually doing okay. She's a quote unquote lower class woman, but I mean, she's got a dog and whatever that rod thing is. I don't know what that is, but but we're starting to see women get more and more opportunities, and this is really important. Okay, this is good. You're going to get a big women's movement in the 1800s, but those are just to give an idea a little bit about what's going on with families and people in the 18th century as well. Okay, so I'll see you guys soon, and on to the next video.